So we ended our last session with this sentence. So far I have most enjoyed the chapter Dark is because. And I want you to pause the video, I want you to find someone, I want you to share your thoughts. Do they agree with you? Do they say the same chapter was their favourite? Do they have the same reasoning for that chapter being their favourite? So pause the video and share that just for a moment. And now moving on to this session, we're going to be trying to answer the question of how do I make predictions. So we're going to be looking at the knowledge we have, things we've already read, and the things we're going to read today, and use that knowledge and other clues to try and predict and guess what's going to happen next. So we're going to be reading through some of the story, and we're going to be identifying something that repeats, so events and themes that recur over and over again in every single chapter. We're then going to be able to make predictions about what we think will happen in the chapter based on clues from the text, so what the author provides us. And then finally, we're going to make predictions about what will happen in the chapter. And this is going to be based on our knowledge of the structure, the way the author builds each chapter. So think about patterns that you're constantly seeing. This always happens at the beginning. This always happens at the end. This always happens when that character does this. Think about those as we go through this session. And before we start reading the next section, let's have a little look at this and remind ourselves about what we know about the story already. So who are the main characters in the story? And what are they like? What are their personalities like? So pause the video, have a little think about that. Come and join me when you're ready to share your thoughts. And then another question for you. Who has Plop met so far in the story already? Can you remember the characters that he's met in each chapter? And what have these people taught him? So again, pause the video and I want you to be thinking about the 5 chapters we've read so far. Who's he met and what did they teach him? So in chapter 1, Plop came cascading down from the tree like a Catherine wheel. And when he arrived at the bottom, he met a little boy who said dark is fun because he gets to watch fireworks. In our second paragraph, Plop came down like a thunderbolt to meet an old lady who told us that dark is kind because she uses the darkness to help her remember things that have happened in the past. Plop met the Boy Scout by falling from the branch like a roly-poly pudding and was told that dark is exciting because they can have campfires and play games. And next, Plop was mistaken for a woolly ball when he fell from the tree, when he met the little girl who told us that dark is necessary because, of course, without dark, Father Christmas couldn't come and give us presents at Christmas. And that takes us to our final chapter that we've read so far. And this was where Plop came down and was disappointed to find that he hadn't met Father Christmas, but instead a lady that looked like Father Christmas, who told him that dark is fascinating because of all the nocturnal animals. So thinking about these 5 chapters so far, are there any things or events that have happened in each chapter? Is there a pattern that might happen in these? Think about it, and then we're going to start looking at chapter 6. Dark is wonderful. So we're going to focus on a section of the Dark is Wonderful from chapter 6 rather than the whole chapter initially. And this is going to help us to learn a little bit about it to make our prediction. So let's have a little read of this together. You can find this version of the extract on the website so you can read along with me. Dark is wonderful. That was nice, said Plop when he had gulped down what his father had brought. What was it? A shrew, said his father. I like shrew, said Plop. What's next? A short pause, said Mrs. Barn Owl. Let your poor daddy get his breath back. All right, said Plop, but do hurry up, Daddy. Shrews are nice, but they're not very big, are they? This one feels very lonely all by itself at the bottom of my tummy. I don't believe there is a bottom to your tummy, said his father. No matter how much I put into it, it's never full. Oh well, I suppose I'd better go and hunt for something else to cast into the bottomless pit. Oh, that's what fathers are for, said Plop. Wouldn't you like to go hunting too, Mummy? Be a nice change for you. Thank you very much, said Mrs. Barn Owl. What you really mean is that you won't have to wait so long between courses. I will certainly go if you don't mind being left alone. Why don't you come with us, said his father. Then you wouldn't have to wait at all. Plop looked around at the creeping darkness. No, thank you, Daddy, he said. I've got some more remembering to do. Righto, said Mr. Barn Owl. Ready, dear? Plop's parents took off together side by side, their great wings almost touching. Plop sat outside the nest hole and watched them drift away into the darkness until they had melted into each other and then disappeared altogether. It took quite a long time because the stars were coming out and Plop could see a long way by their light with his owl's eyes. He remembered what his mother had said about dark never being black. It was certainly not black tonight. It was more of a misty grey, and the sky was pricked all over with tiny stars. "Drat," said a voice from somewhere below Plop. Plop started and peered down through the leaves. There was a man with some sort of contraption set up in front of him, standing there scowling up at the cloud which had hidden the moon. What was he doing? So this is only one part of the chapter, it's the opening of this chapter. So there's more to come. However, I'm going to ask you now to think about what you think could happen next in this chapter, and why do you think that? So think about the stuff maybe that you've heard in that extract. Think about the things that you know have happened in previous chapters. So think about that question. Find someone to share your ideas with. Pause the video and then come and join me when you're ready. Now, when you make sensible guesses about what might happen next, based on everything you already know, it's called a prediction. And there's some certain things that we can look for that can help with our prediction. So firstly, what do you predict will happen when Plop flies down to the ground? And why do you think that's going to happen? Think about some patterns that you may be seen in the previous chapters in this book. So pause the video and just have a little think about that. What do you think will happen when Plop flies down to the ground, and why? Now, who do you predict Plop might meet in this chapter? So we know he's going to fly down to the ground. Who do you think he could meet when he's there? And why do you think that? Again, pause the video, have a little think about this and come and join me when you're ready. What do you predict the person Plop meets will say to him when he meets him? And why? Again, think about those patterns we've seen in the previous chapters. Is there a pattern that's going on that can help guide in the way you're thinking? So what do you predict the person Plop meets will say when he meets him, and why? Pause the video and have a little ponder, then come and join me when you're ready. And our final question to think about is, how do you predict Plop will feel after he's met this character, and why? So how's he going to feel once he's met this character, and why? So have a little think, pause the video and come and join me when you're ready. Now we're going to take a short pause in this lesson because what I want you to do now is to write down that prediction that you have about what's going to happen next. So I want you to come up with your own. And once you've managed to finish that, then what's going to happen is you're going to be able to go back and actually look at the rest of this chapter, which again you will find an extract on the website and an audio version. So I want you to think about where we've come to at the moment, where we've got that idea of Plop looking down through the leaves and seeing there's a man with some sort of contraption set up in front of him, standing there scowling up at the cloud which had hidden the moon. What was he going to do? And use those 4 questions of what do you predict is going to happen when Plop flies down to the ground? Who do you predict that Plop's going to meet in this chapter? What do you predict the person Plop meets will say when they meet him? And finally, how do you predict Plop will feel after having met the character? And I want you to write those down as your own conclusion to this chapter. Once you've finished that, come and join me again and we'll carry on with the lesson. So now we're going to be able to look at the rest of this chapter. So join along with me, download the PDF version of this chapter and you can read along so we can have a little look to see what this chapter is. And then while we're doing this, I want you to think about whether your prediction was right. And if it was, why do you think you got it right? What was it that you spotted? And if not, how did you get it wrong? What red herrings, what little clues did you take in different directions? And then even if you weren't exactly right, do you think your prediction was sensible? Do you think if you actually rewrote that book and you put your ending in there, it would still make a very good story? It would make sense. Why? Why not? So let's go and have a read of Chapter 6, Dark is Wonderful. That was nice, said Plop, when he had gulped down what his father had brought. What was it? A shrew, said his father. I like shrew. What's next? Said Plop. A short pause, said Mrs. Barn Owl. Let your poor daddy get his breath back. All right, said Plop, but do hurry up, Daddy. Shrews are nice, but they're not very big, are they? This one feels very lonely all by itself at the bottom of my tummy. It needs company. I don't believe there is a bottom to your tummy, said his father. No matter how much I put into it, it's never full. Oh well, I suppose I'd better go and hunt for something else to cast into the bottomless pit. That's what fathers are for, said Plop. Wouldn't you like to go hunting too, Mummy? It would be a nice change for you. Thank you very much, said Mrs. Barn Owl. What you really mean is that you won't have to wait so long between courses. And I will certainly go if you don't mind being left. Why don't you come with us? Said his father. Then you wouldn't have to wait at all. Plop looked around at the creeping darkness. No, thank you, Daddy, he said. I have some remembering to do. Righto, said Mr. Barn Owl. Ready, dear? Plop's parents took off together side by side, their great white wings almost touching. Plop sat outside the nest hole and watched them drift away into the darkness, until they melted into each other and then disappeared altogether. It took quite a long time because the stars were coming out and Plop could see a long way by their light with his owl's eyes. He remembered what his mother had said about the dark never being black. It certainly wasn't black tonight. It was more of a misty grey, and the sky was all prickled with tiny stars. Drat, said a voice from somewhere below Plop. Plop started and peered down through the leaves. There was a man with some sort of contraption set up in front of him, standing there, scowling up at the cloud which was hidden the moon. What was he doing? Plop shut his eyes, took a deep breath, and fell off his branch. He shot through the air like a white streak and landed with a soft bump. Heavens, cried the man, a shooting star. Actually, I'm a barn owl, said the shooting star. What's that thing you've got there? A telescope, said the man. A barn owl, did you say? Well, I thought you were a meteor. How do you do? How do I do what? Asked Plop. Oh, you know what I mean. How are you? Hungry, said Plop. I thought you said I was a shooting star, not a meteor. A meteor is a shooting star. Oh, said Plop. What is a television for? Telescope. For looking at things like stars and planets. Oh, can I have a look, please? Of course, said the man. It's not a very good night for it, I'm afraid. Too cloudy. I don't like the dark very much, said Plop. Really? Said the man. How very odd. You must miss a lot. The dark is wonderful. Tell me, said Plop, please. I'll do better than that. I'll show you, the man said. Come and put your eye. No, this end. Plop had jumped up, scuttled along the telescope, and was now peering backwards between his feet into the wrong end. I can't see anything, he said. You surprise me, said the man. Try this end. Plop wobbled back along the telescope, and the man supported him on his wrist so that his eye was level with the eyepiece. Now can you see anything? Oh, yes, said Plop. It makes everything come nearer, doesn't it? I can see a bright, bright star. That must be very near. Yes, 54 million miles away, that's all. Million, gasped Plop. Yes, that's Sirius, the dog star. You're quite right. It is one of the nearest. Obviously, millions were nothing to a man with a telescope. Why is it called the dog star? Asked Plop. Because it belongs to Orion, the great hunter. Look, there he is. Can you see those 3 stars close together? Plop drew his head back from the telescope and blinked. Can I change eyes? He said. This one's getting very tired. Yeah, of course. Now see if you can find the great hunter. He has 3 stars close together, did you say? Yes, that's his belt. And some fainter stars behind him. Yes, that's his sword. I've got him, shouted Plop. I've got Orion, the great hunter. Oh, I never knew stars had names. Show me some more. Well, we'll see if we can find the pole star, shall we? Hang on, I have to swing the telescope round for that. Plop had a ride on the telescope, and then the man showed him how to find the plough and the two stars pointing straight up to the pole star. "That's a bright one too, isn't it?" said Plop. "Yes, there. Now you can find that. You need never get lost, because that star is directly over the North Pole, so you'll always know where North is." "Is that important?" asked Plop. "Very important," said the man. Heavens! What was that? An eerie, long-drawn shriek had torn a piece of the night. "Oh dear, I expect that's my daddy," said Plop. They looked up. A ghostly, whitish form circled above them. "Yes, it is. I'd better let him know I'm here." "Eek!" "Oh," said the man, jumping. "You should warn people when you're going to do that. You know, I've often wondered what that noise was. Now I shall know it is only you or your father." "Or my mother," said Plop. "I really must go. Thank you very, very much for teaching me about the stars." He hopped onto the telescope and bowed his funny little bow. "Goodbye. Goodbye, Master Barn Owl. Good stargazing." Plop flew up to join his father, and together they landed on the landing branch. "Well," said Plop's mother, "the man with the telescope says dark is wonderful, and he called me Master Barn Owl, and what do you think, Plop?" "I know what I think," said Mr. Barn Owl, not giving Plop a chance to reply. "I think Master Barn Owl has got a bit of a cheek to send his poor parents on an absolutely urgent search for food, and then not bother to be in when they get back. I thought you were supposed to be starving." "I am starving," said Plop, "but did you know that the Dog Star is 54 million miles away?" "Do you want your dinner, or don't you?" said Mr. Barn Owl. "Oh yes," said Plop. He gobbled down what his father had brought, and he gobbled down what his mother had brought, and not only did he not ask what it was that he had just eaten, but he did not even say, "What next?" What he said was, "Daddy, do you know how to find the pole star? Shall I show you?" "By all means," said Mr. Barn Owl, giving his wife a slow wink. "Anything that can take your mind off your tummy like this must be worth seeing." Plop would not rest, and so neither could Mr. and Mrs. Barn Owl, until he had made quite sure that they could recognize all the stars which the man with the telescope had shown them. He was still at it at about 4 o'clock in the morning. "Now, are you quite sure you understand about the pole star?" he said to his mother, who seemed to be being a bit dense about it. "I think so, dear," yawned Mrs. Barn Owl. "You find the thing that looks like a plough but is actually a big bear, or is it a small bear, and the pole star is near the North Star?" "The pole star is the North Star," Plop said impatiently, "and the two stars at the front of the plough point to it. I don't think you're really trying. You haven't been listening." "Oh, we have," said Mr. Barn Owl. "We've been listening for hours and hours. I think perhaps Mummy is just a little bit tired." "But you must know how to find the pole star," said Plop, "or you might get lost." "I never get lost," said his father indignantly, "and neither does your mother. Now be a good chap and go into the nest hole, and I'll see if I can find you something nice for your supper. You can have it in bed for once, "All right," said Plop, "but I really do feel you should know about these things. I'll have to try to explain again tomorrow." Mr. Barn Owl turned to his wife in horror. "Oh no, not tomorrow night as well. I couldn't stand it." "Never mind, dear," said Mrs. Barn Owl soothingly. "You haven't had to do nearly as much hunting as usual." "I'm not at all sure that all this stargazing isn't much more wearing than filling the bottomless pit," groaned Mr. Barn Owl. "Oh, Daddy!" Plop put his head out of the nest hole. "Did I tell you about Orion? Orion's the great hunter, and—" "Oh, he's gone." "Yes, dear, he must finish his hunting before it gets light," said his mother. "Now you get back in there and mind you wash behind your ears properly. I'm coming to inspect you in a minute." So Plop had his supper in bed, and then, like a real night owl, he slept right through the daylight hours.